There is a good chance you are taking fish oil right now, and there is a good chance it is not doing what you think it is. In my neurology clinic, I see this constantly. Seniors who have been taking omega-3s faithfully for years, doing everything right on the surface, but making three specific errors that completely undermine the benefit. Not because they were careless, because no one ever told them what to actually look for. One of those errors involves a risk to the heart's electrical system that most people taking fish oil have never heard of. My name is Dr. Anika Mehta. I am a neurologist, and in the next few minutes, I am going to show you exactly what those three errors are and how to correct them. Let's start with why this matters in the first place, because the biology here is genuinely important. DHA, docosahexaenoic acid, makes up a significant portion of your brain's neuronal membranes. I want you to think of it this way. Imagine the electrical wiring in your home. Now imagine the rubber insulation wrapped around each wire. That insulation is what keeps signals clean, fast, and reliable. DHA is essentially that insulation for your brain's neurons. When DHA levels drop, signals start to flicker. Connections weaken. The brain's ability to form and maintain pathways, what we call synaptic health, begins to suffer. Now here is something most people don't know. DHA doesn't simply float from your bloodstream into your brain. There is a specialized transport system in the blood-brain barrier, a kind of molecular doorway. And with age, that doorway becomes less efficient. It gets harder for your brain to pull in the DHA it needs, even when it's available in your blood. This is one reason why the need for adequate omega-3 intake actually increases as we get older, not decreases. So where does the gap come from? Most seniors eating a typical Western diet get far less EPA and DHA than their brains require. Fatty fish twice or 3 times a week can move the needle, but most people aren't eating that consistently. Supplements can fill the gap, but only under the right conditions. And this is exactly where things get complicated. Here is the concept I want you to hold on to. There is a blood test called the omega-3 index. It measures the percentage of EPA and DHA in your red blood cell membranes. It doesn't tell you what you took last week. It tells you what your cells have actually absorbed and incorporated over the past several months. Research consistently links an index above 8% with meaningfully lower risk of cognitive decline and dementia. Most seniors in the United States are sitting well below that, often below 4%, without knowing it. This is important because the number on your supplement bottle means almost nothing by itself. A dose of 1 gram per day in one person might move the index significantly. In another person taking the same product, it might barely register. The only way to know if it's actually working is to test. We will come back to that. If you want to get your index checked without waiting for a doctor's order, I've linked the at-home test I recommend to patients in the description below. But first, I need to talk about something that no one warns you about when you buy fish oil at the pharmacy. Fish oil is one of the most chemically unstable supplements on the market. That is not an opinion. It is basic biochemistry. Omega-3 fats are highly reactive molecules. When they are exposed to heat, light, and air, they begin to break down, a process called oxidation, or in plain terms, going rancid. And here is the part that should concern you. This can happen before you even open the bottle. I had a patient in my clinic, a woman in her late 60s, conscientious, proactive about her health. She had been taking fish oil every single day for nearly 2 years. She came to me because her brain fog was worsening, not improving. Her inflammation markers were elevated. When we talked through her routine, I asked where she kept her fish oil. She pointed toward the window in her kitchen. It sat on the counter, in direct sunlight, opened and reclosed every morning for months. That bottle was not delivering omega-3s to her brain. It was delivering oxidized fats, compounds that don't just lose their benefit, but may actively work against you. Now, how do you know if your fish oil has gone bad? The most obvious signal is smell. A fresh, well-made fish oil supplement should have almost no odor and no aftertaste. If you burp it up and it tastes fishy, that is not normal. That is a warning sign. The fishy burp that so many people joke about is actually your body telling you something is wrong with the product. Beyond the smell test, there are quality markers that actually matter. Look for third-party testing certifications. Organizations like IFOS, USP, or NSF. These verify that the oil meets published oxidation standards. Specifically, a peroxide value below 5 and a TOTOX score below 26 are the numbers that indicate a fresh, stable product. Most bottles don't print these on the label, which is why the certification seal matters. Storage matters just as much as what you buy. Once you open a bottle of fish oil, refrigerate it. Buy smaller bottles so you cycle through them quickly. Avoid buying in bulk and then leaving a 3-month supply sitting at room temperature. The product that arrives fresh can become rancid within weeks under the wrong conditions. So you have found a clean, tested, properly stored product. That solves one problem. But now we need to look at what is actually in it, because not all omega-3 supplements are built the same, and the ratio between two key molecules changes everything about what your brain can use. Most fish oil bottles show you a combined number, something like 1,000 milligrams EPA plus DHA per serving. And most people look at that number, decide it sounds reasonable, and move on. But the ratio between those two molecules, how much EPA versus how much DHA, determines what your body actually does with the supplement. And for brain health specifically, that distinction matters more than most people realize. Let me explain what each one does. DHA is the structural molecule. It is the dominant omega-3 in brain tissue. It builds and maintains neuronal membranes, supports the volume of the hippocampus, which is the brain's primary memory center, and is the foundation of synaptic health. When researchers look at the brains of people with Alzheimer's disease, one of the consistent findings is that DHA levels in the hippocampus and frontal lobes are significantly lower than in healthy brains. DHA is not a nice-to-have, it is structural. It is like the bricks in a wall. EPA works differently. It is the anti-inflammatory molecule. It reduces neuroinflammation, supports mood, and protects the vascular pathways that feed the brain. Think of EPA as the maintenance crew, keeping the environment clean so DHA can do its structural work. Both matter, but they matter for different reasons. Here is where it gets clinically relevant. For cognitive protection specifically, research points toward formulations where DHA is the dominant component. A rough 2-to-1 ratio of DHA to EPA appears to be where brain-specific benefits are most consistently seen. But most standard fish oil products are formulated the other way around. Higher in EPA, lower in DHA, because those ratios are easier and cheaper to produce. You can pick up a product that looks perfectly adequate on the label and still be getting a ratio that does very little for your brain tissue. Now, EPA still has its place. For seniors dealing with vascular risk factors, elevated inflammation, or low mood, a more balanced profile makes sense. This is not about declaring one molecule better than the other. It is about understanding that your specific situation should guide what you look for. There is also a dosing reality that most people miss. Low-dose formulations, anything below about 300 milligrams of combined EPA and DHA, have repeatedly failed to show meaningful cognitive benefit in clinical trials. This is actually one of the main reasons omega-3 research gets such mixed headlines. Studies often use doses that are simply too small to move the omega-3 index. When you don't shift the index, you don't change the biology. And when you don't change the biology, you don't see results. So the trial looks like a failure, and the headline reads, "Omega-3s don't work." But what the headline should say is, "This dose, in this population, at this baseline level, did not work." That is a very different statement. The target that research supports is roughly 1 to 2 grams of combined EPA and DHA daily, chosen with your brain health goal in mind, and formulated with a DHA dominant ratio if cognitive protection is the priority. Not the total oil in the capsule, the actual EPA and DHA content. Those are often very different numbers, and the label will show you both if you know where to look. To save you the work of sorting through hundreds of options, I've linked specific recommendations in the description. One for brain focus support, one for vascular and inflammation goals, so you know exactly what to look for. Now here is where I need to slow down and talk about something that most omega-3 conversations never reach. Because there is one risk associated with higher dose supplementation that is especially relevant once you pass 65, and it involves your heart's electrical system. Omega-3s are supposed to protect the heart, and at the right dose, the evidence supports that they do. But at higher doses, especially in older adults with existing cardiovascular risk, the story changes in a way that deserves your full attention. Here is what the research shows. In a trial called OMEMI, researchers studied seniors over 75 who had recently had a heart attack. These were people with real cardiovascular history, exactly the kind of patients who are often told to take fish oil. Those who received about 1.8 grams of EPA and DHA per day had nearly double the rate of new atrial fibrillation compared to the placebo group. That is not a small signal, and it has been seen in other large trials as well, consistently at higher doses. Let me explain what atrial fibrillation actually means, because the term gets used a lot without much explanation. Your heart has an electrical system that coordinates its rhythm. Atrial fibrillation happens when that system develops an irregular pattern. The upper chambers of the heart quiver instead of contracting cleanly. It doesn't always cause obvious symptoms. Some people feel palpitations, others feel nothing at all. But AFib significantly raises the risk of stroke because blood can pool and clot in an irregularly beating heart. For someone already over 65, that risk is not theoretical. Now, this dose-response pattern is important to understand. Standard over-the-counter doses, generally under 1 gram of combined EPA and DHA per day, show minimal to no AFib signal in the research. The risk appears to climb meaningfully above 1.5 grams per day and becomes more pronounced at the prescription-level doses of 3 to 4 grams that are sometimes used to treat elevated triglycerides. The concern is not about fish oil in general. It is about high-dose supplementation in people whose hearts may already be electrically vulnerable. Who needs to be most careful? Seniors over 70. Anyone with a history of irregular heartbeat or palpitations. Anyone already on blood thinners or antiarrhythmic medications. If you fall into any of those categories, This is not a reason to panic, but it is a reason to have a direct conversation with your physician before adjusting your dose upward. Here is the reassurance I want to give you. This does not mean omega-3s are dangerous. It means dose matters. And the goal is not the maximum dose you can tolerate. The goal is the optimal blood level, the omega-3 index target of 8 to 10%, achieved with a clean, DHA-dominant product at a dose that your heart can handle. For most seniors, that means staying in the range of 1 gram of combined EPA and DHA daily, unless a physician has a specific clinical reason to go higher. Once you understand these three variables, oxidation, ratio, and dose, omega-3 supplementation stops being a gamble and starts being a tool you can actually use. Let me bring this back to the patient I mentioned earlier, the woman with the bottle on the sunny windowsill. After we identified what was happening, we made 3 changes. We switched her to a refrigerated, third-party tested supplement with a DHA-dominant ratio. We confirmed her dose was appropriate given her cardiovascular history, and we ordered an omega-3 index test to establish her baseline. 6 months later, her index had moved from below 4% to above 8%. Her follow-up cognitive markers had improved. Her inflammation had come down. She hadn't changed her diet dramatically. She hadn't added anything exotic. She had simply started doing the one thing that matters, taking the right form at the right dose and confirming it was actually working. That is what I want for you. Now here is what I need you to understand before you close this video. Getting your omega-3s right is a genuine step forward, but it does not exist in isolation. The brain is not protected by one thing. It is threatened by several things at once, and some of those threats are sitting in your kitchen right now, wearing a healthy reputation they do not deserve. There is one food in particular, something that most seniors eat regularly, something that doctors and nutritionists have rarely questioned, that research now connects to a rapid and measurable increase in stroke risk. Not over years, much faster than that. And the mechanism involves the same vascular pathways we have been talking about today. If you have just spent time optimizing how you support your brain, the next logical step is making sure nothing is quietly working against it. That is exactly what the next video covers. It is on your screen right now. Watch it next, because what you just improved is worth protecting.